Good morning, everyone. Once again, welcome to our webinar on creating an impactful researcher profile with Web of Science and Publons. In this webinar, you will learn how you can create a strong researcher profile using Publons and how it can support you throughout your academic career. This session is organized in collaboration with Ethics and Publication Unit, Research Management Center, Office of Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research and Innovation, Universiti Teknologi, Mara. Kindly note that you are muted upon joining to prevent any background noise during the webinar. We are recording this webinar and we will share the recording with you next week. If you have any questions or if you encounter any technical issue, please send us a message in the chat box. The control panel is located at the bottom of the screen. As you can see from the slide here, you can pose questions using the Q&A function by clicking the three dots in the control panel and choose Q&A. Your questions will be addressed during the Q&A sessions at the end of the presentations. There will be a survey at the end of this webinar to help us improve our future webinars. Please help us by giving your feedback in the survey, which will appear after this webinar ended. Before we start with the presentation, let me introduce myself. I'm Dennis, Marketing Manager for Southeast Asia. My colleague, Clarice Liu, Senior Account Manager, will be hosting the Q&A session later. Now, before we jump into the presentation itself, again, we are very honored to have Dr. Yong Soon Hong, Head of Ethics and Publication Unit, Research Management Center, Universiti Teknologi Mara, to give a short opening address. Dr. Yong, please.
Thank you, Dennis. Very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Clarice for making this event a reality. I have been contacting Clarivate through Clarice for several months until today. So we are very happy to have this event, and well, I hope this event will be beneficial to our staff, especially those budding research scientists who aspires to advance their career in a field of research. Now, to begin with, I'm not going to give you like a long speech, but I'm going to let you know the importance of having a research profile. Now, I still remember like about 10 years ago when I started with a PhD, I was instructed to create a profile in Researcher ID. And I think that was the first time that I heard such a thing, a research profile. And well, as you know, during that time, ISI Thompson is the owner of the Researcher ID until Clarivate took over. So once again, Publons was created by Clarivate. So this one is kind of like a first, the first time that such a profile that is created, not only that it encompasses the credentials in publication, but also in reviewing and also editing. So this is actually important, and it becomes a new trend right now, because nowadays research credentials is not only recognized through publication but also efforts in reviewing. And because of that, I have I have been planning this for such a while so that all your ITM staff can benefit by learning how to create a Publon profile. And through that, hopefully it will going to increase your own visibility and also invite and attract more collaboration from international community. So with that, I'm going to end my speech right here and pass it back to Dennis. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yong, for sharing your experience and with the audience here. Okay, moving on. I'm sure you are quite familiar with the speaker for today. She is none other than Julin Chang, our solution consultant for Southeast Asia. Specializing in scientific and scholarly research, Julin is responsible for pre-sales and post-sales client engagement across Southeast Asia. She has more than 15 years of extensive experience in STM publishing, covering various research fields such as medical education, medical informatics, and evidence-based medicine. Her passion for client engagement and academia, combined with her experience in different publishing houses, enable her to provide a unique blend of insights and stakeholder perspectives regarding academic research output and research evaluation. Now, without further ado, I will pass the mic to Julene to start the session. Julene, please.
Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, Dr. Yong, for the opening. You have helped ease my job for today in explaining the benefit of having a researcher profile for your research output as well as review output. Okay, Dennis, are you able to give me the host functionality?
Yep, sorry. Okay, you can do it.
Thank you. So I'm very happy to be able to share this session with all the UITM researchers today. Maybe some of you have attended some of my sessions that I've conducted probably in the past few months. I think I've conducted probably at least 3 webinars for UITM researchers already. So today's session is really focused around Publons and how you can make full use of this platform to create a very impactful profile for yourself as a researcher. And Dr. Yong has also very rightly summarized the benefits of having a researcher profile like this, because it encompasses not just your publications, but also peer review work and your journal editing work, giving you a 360-degree profile that any international researcher, any international journal is able to see. Okay. So in the past, Web of Science was known as ISI, and we have moved and changed names over the 60 years that we were around, from Thomson Scientific, Thomson Reuters, Thomson ISI, and today we are part of Clarivate Analytics. But we are still the same. So we are Web of Science, and ISI, Institute of Scientific Information, is still around, but it is now what we consider the university or the brain behind the Web of Science philosophy as well as methodologies. Okay. So for many of you who have previously used Web of Science Researcher ID, okay, Researcher ID has migrated to Publons. So if you have previously used Researcher ID before, you would now have a profile also on Publons. Okay? So Publons is where you should be going to update and maintain your profile if you have previously got a researcher ID. So what is Publons? So Publons is an extension of researcher ID. So in the past, researcher ID was more used for maintaining just your publications in Web of Science. But as of today, when the migration happened, Publons profile is able to allow you to include Web of Science publications and also non-Web of Science publications. So your paper, no matter where it is indexed or where it is published, can be included into your Publons profile. Okay? And what's the difference between Publons and other profiles out there? Okay? The difference is that Publons gives you citation metrics imported from Web of Science core collection. Okay? So this will be a metric that is used to measure your research based on Web of Science. And at the same time, because you're also including your peer review information, you're able to see how well you are as a peer reviewer against others in your same field in terms of peer reviewing. Okay? And all your full peer review editing history, journal editing history is included so that international journals will be able to see who you are and whether you've peer reviewed before. Now, at this point, I wanted to highlight something that is very important because why is it important to peer review? And why is it important to be exposed as a peer reviewer? The reason is because peer reviewers get first-hand information into the development and advancement of research in that particular field. So imagine yourself as an early career researcher. If you start trying to do peer review, you will be exposed to these international authors, understand all these international emerging trends and topics, and therefore be able to be better at framing your research topics. Okay? And also, if there's any faculty on the line, Publons is able to help you to maintain a full CV that comprises your scholarly impact in terms of publications, as well as your author information, your editorial information, and peer review information. And this CV is very important when it comes to, number one, evaluation of yourself within the university, as well as in the event that you want to probably apply for an international grant. Okay, this would help you as well. And I will explain this a little bit more in my coming slides. You're also, and one thing about Publons is that if you've not used Publons before and you want to create a profile for yourself, you do not need to use your institutional email to register. The reason is because Publons profile is the only profile that you will need throughout your career, no matter which institution you are from. So I would encourage you to use your personal email to create your Publons account so that you can take this anywhere you go. Right? So to expand a little bit more about the benefits of having a Publons profile, okay, we have gotten some feedback from various researchers, and some of these are highlighted here on the screen. So one of the researchers said, after I've created my Publons profile, I noticed that I received more invitations to review for good quality journals. So when she mentioned about good quality journals, she's actually mentioning about journals that have very high impact factor. So journals in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 of journal citation reports and Web of Science. Okay? And also, there is an invitation that went to this researcher to write a review paper for a Q1 Web of Science journal. And she thinks that it's because she had a public profile on Publons. Okay? So this researcher was able to showcase her work across all the different high impact journals, and therefore other high impact journals invited her to write a review paper for them. So this is the kind of exposure that you are open to when you have a Publons profile. Okay? And of course, your review records is automatically updated if you have reviewed for some of these major publishers that are partners with us. Okay, so you don't have to do additional steps to put in your review records. Everything gets automatically included into your Publons profile. So in a nutshell, okay, you gain international exposure to the research community. Okay, so increase your chances of getting collaborators for your research. You are visible to the top quality and high impact factor journals from major publishers. Your review work gets automatically updated from partnered journals. And you can generate your own Publons CV with all your relevant works. So when I mentioned about Publons partnered journals, these are some of them. So these are some of the publishers that we've worked with. So if you have reviewed for any of these journals or any journal within these publishers, there will be an option for you to say, yes, I want to be recognized in my Publons profile automatically every time I review for your journals. Okay? So when that happens, if you review for that journal, your profile will be updated automatically. So now to the important part, how do you create your profile? So as it stands, as I mentioned before, we have migrated from Researcher ID to Publons. Okay, so this profile here on the screen that you see is the Publons profile, and it is publicly viewable, meaning anybody who is using the internet that accesses publons.com will be able to see your profile. Okay, so they will be able to see your total publications, your total time cited, your H-index, your verified reviews, your verified editor records, and so on. Okay, so these are information that is important for the international research community to see. So how do you claim a Publons profile? Method one is if you had a researcher ID, what you would be doing is going into publons.com. Okay? And if you remember the ID that you have used, the email address that you have used to create your researcher ID, use that same account to log into Publons, and you will be able to start maintaining your Publons profile from now on. Okay? Of course, many of you will say, I forgot my password. What can I do? So if you remember your ID, do go in and then click that there is an option to click forgot password, and then you can do a reset. Okay? So that's option method number one, if you had a previous researcher ID. Method number two is because UiTM has access to Web of Science, if you have never used Publons before, but you have papers indexed in Web of Science, okay, you can actually claim your Web of Science author record because that will be linked to your Publons profile at the same time. Okay, so this is method number two, and I will demo that later on as well. And finally, if you have no Web of Science publications, you do not have to worry. You can just immediately create your Publons profile from scratch on publons.com, and you can manually add your publications that are not in Web of Science. Okay. But of course, if you also have an ORCID ID, you are able to link your records from ORCID ID and synchronize these two accounts together. So when you update ORCID ID publications, it automatically updates your Publons publications as well. Okay? So this is an overview of the various methods that you can use to claim your Publons profile. So this is the registration page of Publons. Okay, so you can use your personal email, but of course, I remember that UiTM has access to Web of Science. If you have previously created your own Web of Science user ID and password, you can use the same user ID and password as well. Okay, so you can log in with the same credentials and we can link that together. So if you have a publication in Web of Science, what I would encourage and strongly encourage you to do is claim your author profile in your author record in Web of Science first. So you will do an author search in Web of Science. So log into Web of Science database, go to author search, search for your name, last name, full name. Okay. There will be an algorithm in the background that will group similar names and affiliations together, and you can then select the correct record for yourself and claim this record. Okay. So you can claim your record, and do note this record stays with you as well as long as you are still on Web of Science. Okay. This record is sitting behind a subscription, meaning only users that have access to Web of Science will be able to see your author record. That's why there is a link out to Publons so that you can have your Publons profile as your public profile, no matter whether that person has Web of Science or not. Okay. So this is what a Web of Science author record looks like. Okay. So this is viewable by Web of Science users only. It will showcase your organizations, your affiliations across the years. it will show your unique Web of Science researcher ID. So I mentioned last time that I mentioned a few slides ago that researcher ID now migrated to Publons, right? But it still remains here as long as you have a publication index in Web of Science. So if you have a publication index in Web of Science, you will automatically still have your researcher ID. Okay. So this profile, this author record sits in Web of Science, and there will be a link to view your full profile on Publons, which is the public profile. Now, the third method of claiming a profile is to create your own Publons account and then manually adding publications to your dashboard. Okay? So from here, you will be able to have your own private dashboard. In the box in red, that will be where you manually include your publications, peer reviews, and editor records. And if you have properly updated your profile on Publons, you will then be able to create and generate your own Publon CV. And this can help you in terms of securing promotions, receiving prestigious fellowships, okay? Getting visas to work abroad as an outstanding researcher, and for continuing education. Okay, so these are just some of the examples of how you can use a good CV from Publons. Okay, and of course, some of you would say, some of you who have got Publons accounts, some of you might have duplicate accounts because you didn't know that researcher ID migrated to Publons and then you created a separate Publons account. Okay, do not worry because you can just log into either one of the accounts that you have that you want to delete. Just delete the one that you are no longer maintaining. Okay, and this is where you should be going. Okay. So at this point, I am going to see if there's any questions from the audience before I go live into the platform. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So Clarice, you have answered some of these questions. Thank you very much. Okay. If we had registered using UITM email and now we want to change to personal Gmail, is it possible to change? Yes, you will be able to add additional email addresses. So I will show you where and how to do that when I go live. Okay. Okay, so if you have any more questions, I will address that towards the end during the Q&A. So the first thing I want to show you is how you can claim your profile from Web of Science. Okay, so by logging into Web of Science via the UITM library website, okay, you will be able to access this. And you can go to author search, do a name search, okay, or you can actually search for your ORCID ID or researcher ID if you had before. You can search for your name here. So I'm going to give you an example. So let's Garfield E. You can actually type in your full name, or if you have alternative names that you have published with, okay, you can include alternative names by clicking here. Okay. Then go to find. So there will, because I'm using just the letter E as my first name, that's why there are 9 author records. But you will be able to see that there are affiliations attached to each of these authors' names. So just choose the one that is relevant to you. That means it's you, your own name. Okay, so let's say, for example, I am Irene Garfield M. Okay, from Northwestern University, and I have 13 publications. I can have a quick preview of my recent publications and I verify, and yes, this is me. I can click on Garfield Erin M. Okay, and from here, I just click claim this record, and this profile will be mine. So when you click on claim this record, it will prompt you to claim this record on Publons. Okay, so this is a process that you will always have to follow. Okay, so claim this record on Publons. And you will be taken to publons.com, and it will say your Web of Science publications are queued for import, meaning this 13 documents from Web of Science is queued here for you. And what you need to do now is either register for your own Publons account, okay, using the email, password, first name, last name, or you can sign in with your existing Publons account if you do have it, or you can sign in with register with any of these options. Okay, my recommendation is if you want to sync, just choose ORCID, okay, because that is directly linked with publications. So if you have your own account, what you can do now is then log in. Okay, and log in here and then type in your ID and password. So as you can see here, now there are 13 publications that have been queued for me, and I can then import this. Now, some of you would be concerned, hey, how come I can add other people's papers here? Okay, this is because we cannot control the authors' names that they're publishing in, because some of these can also be co-authors and so on. So my recommendation to you is do not import any papers that don't belong to you. There is totally no benefit for you to claim other people's publications. Okay, maybe some of you would think, oh, if I claim somebody else's publications, I have a better profile. Not so, because if international journals or researchers look at your profile, and some of them are they are like Sherlock Holmes, you know, they do a lot of digging. So they will go into your publication, see the authors' names, and if they say, hey, it's not, your name is not in the author's list, but you claim that paper, it reveals a few things. Number one, you're not honest. Okay, so when you're not honest, what will happen? They will not say that they will collaborate with you, okay, because integrity is an issue. So just take note of that. Okay, so do not import any publications that do not belong to you. All right. So this is how you will start creating your Publons profile. Okay? But before I go further to elaborate on each of these options, I wanted to show you, once you have claimed these papers as your record, what will happen is on Web of Science, so here on Web of Science, you would see claimed by author, and you will have a researcher ID from Web of Science. Okay, and at the same time, you will then be able to see your citation network, your H index, look at your author position. So this is something I wanted to highlight to you as well, because it is new on the author record pages. We are able to show how many of your publications you have first authored, last authored, and corresponding authored. We are also able to see who are your top co-authors, and this is also something new and something very useful for your potential collaborators to see. Okay. And of course, if any user of Web of Science wants to view your full profile to see your review work as well, they can click View Full Profile on Publons, and that will take them to this page, which is your public profile. Okay. So the public profile of Publons is available for anyone to see without logging in. So as you can see here on this screen, I am not logged in. Okay. So this is what the public can see. You can include your full bio, okay, an overview of who you are, your affiliations, okay, look at the metrics, okay, what's your publication over the years, number of reviews over the years, okay, and your publication information, which journals you're publishing in, and your publication list with the corresponding citations from Web of Science and the peer review information. So you've reviewed for these journals, okay? And you can show more to see more of these journals. So some of you who have done peer review would be concerned. Will you show the peer review, the review itself? Okay, no, we will not, because we will only indicate that you have reviewed for a particular journal. We understand that reviews have privacy policy, so it could be single blind, double blind, and so on. Therefore, we are only showing the verified reviews by journal, okay, not by the article. But when you want to maintain your profile, you will need to put in the article that you have reviewed for, right? So let me see if there's any questions from the Q&A that I can address now. Okay. Okay. Okay, so there's one question. How can I make sure that my Publon profile is noticeable by potential journal editors for chances of getting invitation as a reviewer or editorship? Okay, so like what I would recommend is, if you have never reviewed before, okay, of course, the chances are that you might have very few of verified reviews here. So what you can do is maintain a good publication list. Okay? Make sure that you highlight where you're from, your specialization, so that others will be aware what is your area of specialization. So as a new reviewer, that is my recommendation to you. However, if you have reviewed for multiple journals before, I would encourage you to put in as many of these reviews as you can, so that other journal editors will be able to see your profile before they invite you. Okay. Okay, if the name has different spelling in earlier publications, how to match both records? Okay, so I'm assuming that you're asking about the author search. So from the author search, let me go back to the search result. So as you can see here, there are many different options of spelling. Okay, so for example, if I look at the one that I was choosing just now, Garfield Erin M, the algorithm has already classified the various spelling and the way you have put in your name in your publications. And we have grouped this according to your most recent affiliations. So what you need to do is, if you have multiple names here, so if let's say there's two Garfield Erin M and there's another one which says Garfield Erin, but these two are the same, you can select the two and then view the combined record and then claim these two together. Okay. So once you select these two, you can view combined record right here, and you can then claim the two profiles together. Okay. Okay, so there's another question on, can you show us how to add peer review of journals which are not in list? Okay, definitely. So what I'll be moving on to now is how you can start maintaining this profile that you have on Publons. So on publons.com, you will have your own private dashboard, which looks like this. You can add in your publications here. So click on publications. Okay. Go to import publications. So if you have included your email that you usually publish in, as well as your names, okay, the Web of Science papers that match you will be included here. Okay? And you will be able to import from Web of Science. You can also sync your ORCID ID here. Okay? And you can also include your publications by DOI. Okay? And you can also import using a file upload. If you want to include your peer review information, on the left there is peer reviews here. Click on peer reviews. There's two options, peer review and grant review. So if you reviewed for a grant before, there is also an option for you to include this to be recognized. So as a peer review, you can add a review, and you will then be able to see some options here and fill in those details like the journal, the date you've reviewed, okay, the article's DOI or article's title. You can choose your privacy option, show the journal name only, okay, or display review content or hide the review content. And you include your review information, review content here, and then create a review. So we will do a verification first, okay? And once it has been verified, it will be populated into your Publons profile. Okay? If you have editor's records, you can go to editor record right here, add an editor record, put in the journal's name, details like article title and DOI, and then import. So earlier on, there was questions around how you can change your email address and so on. So on the left, at the bottom, there will be a settings. You can go to email. Okay. You can update my email addresses right here. Okay. And you can add your email, and you can change the primary email to your Hotmail or your Gmail if you prefer. Okay. Earlier on, I mentioned about the duplicate account. So if you have a duplicate account on Publons, once you have logged in, do the same thing and go to delete account. And there will be an option for you to choose, I have a duplicate account, and then delete this. All right. So let's return to Publons. Okay. Now there are a few useful things that you can also choose to include. Okay, your affiliations. So on the left here, under settings, there's an affiliations list. So put in any institutional affiliations that you have. Okay, because you're able to set the date as well, your start date, end date. Any other associations that you are affiliated to, you can include. You can also include the journals that you are an editorial board member of. Okay? And all this can be part of your profile. Okay? Now, the other thing is that once you have created your full profile, the benefit is that you can showcase this profile to anyone on anything. So if you have your email signature, you are able to put in your researcher ID badge, for example. You can generate a researcher ID badge here, okay, with your own researcher ID, and then you can put that into your email signature, okay, or even your website, your own homepage. Okay. So that's what I have for you in terms of how you can maintain your own profile. Okay? And I'm going to show you how many researchers from UITM have actually signed up for the profile now. Okay. So there's about 1,290. Okay? And these are all your journal editors. Okay? Dr. Young also has his own profile here already. And if you click on view researchers from UITM, these are all your researchers. So imagine that there is an international researcher that is looking to verify you as a researcher. When they go into Publons, they will search for your institution, your name, okay? Look at how many publications you've had, how many reviews you've done. Okay? So these are critical information for them to make a decision around your collaboration work, for example. Okay? So now I'm going to see if there's any more questions that I can address. No? All right. Then this final part is what?
Julie?
Yes, Clarice.
I do have two questions on the side. One of it is, what if I have reviews to update in my profile? I don't want to enter them one by one. Is there a workaround for me? And the second question is, if I have a list of emails from publishers thanking me for completing a peer review, can I use that?
Okay, so these two questions can be linked. So so the workaround for mass import of your reviews is if you have all these thank you review emails, what you can do is group these emails together and then email it to us. Okay, you can send an email to let me just check here, reviews, I believe, reviews@publons.com. So I'm going to type this into the chat box. So you can email all these thank you emails that you've received from various publishers, email them to us, okay? And if you have a list of the reviews that you've reviewed for, you can also put that into an Excel spreadsheet together with those thank you emails, and then we can do a mass verification and import back into your profile, okay? So the other thing that you can look at, let me just go, oops. So going back to my private dashboard. Okay, so your peer reviews here. Okay, you can send all your review receipts to reviews@publons.com from here as well. Okay, so that is my workaround suggestion for you. Okay.
Okay, I do have a few more questions come in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one is, does Scopus index publications could be added in Publons as well? Maybe I'll just, ask you one by one. This is the first one.
Okay, so the question is, does Scopus index, so Scopus articles, can it be imported into Publons? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, so any articles, even if it's been indexed in any other databases outside of Web of Science, you can do so by including it here under publications, okay, and then manually importing it via the DOI. There is no automatic synchronization except for ORCID ID and Web of Science publications. So if it's anything outside of these two, you will need to manually add this via DOI or article title. I hope that answers that question.
Yep. The next one will be, can you please explain further on what is exporting of CV meant?
Okay, so this is the part that I wanted to share with you as well. So once you have updated things like your publications, peer reviews, editors' records, okay, there will be a functionality here called Export Publon CV. So this is your CV that you can generate, that you can share with anybody. So what you can do is click on this, okay, because I do not have anything added, I'm going to show you a sample. So once you have generated this, it looks something like this. So this is a sample of a CV from Publons. Okay, you will have your name, your current affiliation, any awards that you've received from us, okay, your publication metrics, publishing summary, okay, number of publications in each of these journals, for example, okay, your reviews you have done, and your editor records. Now, these options, these different sections can be customized. So meaning if you do not want to show anybody your editor records, you can opt out to not show editor records on this public CV. But once you've generated this, it is in a PDF format that you can share with anyone that requires your researcher CV. Okay. So I hope I answered that question.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Julene. And there is another question coming in. It's a two-part question. First is this researcher previously used email address that has been changed, and I assume that researcher can't log into the Publons system to update his or her email address. What is the solution to work around this? And the second question is, can one use two email IDs simultaneously in Publons?
Okay, so I'll address the first question. So the first question is email address that has been changed. So that means, for example, if you were in a different institution, you registered with Publons, you have that email, but now you're a different institution and that email is no longer in play. So I'm assuming that's the case. If that's the case, it actually doesn't matter because that email serves as an ID for Publons. So what you do is when you are logging in, so for example here, when you click login, the email address, if you remember the old email address that you've used, you still sign in with that email address. Okay, but of course the forget password part will not be workable anymore. So what I would recommend you to do then is create your own Publons account again, but this time make sure you use your own Hotmail, your personal email, so that you don't come across this issue again. Okay, and then when you're here in your profile, okay, go to email, okay, update my email addresses, add in any other emails that you might have, okay, so that all the alternative emails are included. Because this, for this list, you should include also your old email addresses that you've used to publish before, because this will then help you to pull your relevant papers from Web of Science. Okay, so maintain this here. Now, if you have, because you have now created a separate account, right? And you have a duplicate and you are not able to delete the old account, I would say email to me, or so you can contact either me or Clarice, and then I will refer you to the relevant tech support so that they are able to help you to manually delete your account. Okay, I hope that answers that question. So the second part is actually about, can you remind me about the second question again? Is it alternative emails?
The second question is, can I simultaneously use two different email IDs at the same time? Let's assume a personal email ID and an institutional email ID.
Okay, so the login ID that you use should be only one. So I would always recommend you use your personal email as your login ID. Okay, if you want to maintain alternative additional emails, use this functionality here under settings, emails, and then update your email addresses. I would not recommend that you have two different IDs because that would mean that you have two different profiles on Publons. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
Okay, right. The next question is, does Clarivate give any sort of recognition to top reviewers in Malaysia? And how does that show on my profile? And also, this is also another question relating to the Malaysia Research Star Award. Is there any sort of recognition for this particular event?
Okay, so in the past, we've got an annual Publons reviewer, a top reviewer recognition. So since 2019 was the last one, but this year we are going through some revamp, so there might be a new award coming up, but as of now, we do not have more top peer reviewer awards. Okay, but in the meantime, if there's any recognition from previous years, the peer reviewers will always get a top peer reviewer badge. Okay, so the peer reviewer awards is something that is recognized through Publons. And as of now, we have all these years, which is until 2019, but we are re-evaluating these awards and there may be a new one coming up. Okay, but there's no information as of now. Okay, so if you have a top peer reviewer award from the previous years, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, you will be able to have a badge on your profile. So let me just go back to, okay, browse for institution. Okay. So there is an option to filter by peer review award winners. Okay, and if you see your profile, there will be a top peer reviewer badge next to your Publons profile. So that's how it's recognized here. Now the second question is around the Research Star Awards. Okay, so previous years we did have awards with Mohi. Okay, but because of the situation this year, I don't think there is going to be a Research Star Awards, but we are working closely in partnership with Mohi to look at recognizing researchers, not just in terms of reviews, but also publications all the time. So when there's a next event, we will definitely want to work and partner with Mohi again. So just look out for that.
All right. We have two more questions coming in. So how does one get top peer reviewer badges like the one that you're showing right now? Is that just related to quantity, meaning the number of reviews that I have performed? Or is there any other criteria involved? And the next question is, why do you recommend using a personal email address rather than a working email address? Would that appear informal to potential editors or publishers out there?
Okay, I'll address the first question first, which is around the peer review awards methodology. So in the past, the methodology is around the total number of peer reviews that have been done. So that is the quantity aspect. Okay, there is also a qualitative aspect, okay, which is, for example, here under the metrics, we will also be able to look at, for example, the review length, as well as whether there's any grading for any of the reviews. So those are incorporated into the previous methodologies that we had. But moving forward, because like I said, we are currently not holding any more peer reviewer awards. We are going to revamp this. We are looking into what else we can do. So any new methodologies will be highlighted when it's made public, if available. Okay. And the second question, Clary, sorry.
The second question is, earlier on, you suggested using a personal email address to create your profile. And the concern here is, does that actually appear informal to potential editors and publishers that are trying to look for candidates for peer review?
That is a very good question. So my answer to you is no, okay? Because you're trying to find a universal communication point for any international researchers to reach you. Doesn't have to be your institutional email. But of course, that said, you need to make sure that you're maintaining a very good profile for yourself, meaning you're including your own papers, making sure that your publications that you listed in your profile of Publons is actually you. Okay? You have good citations, you have good review records. Okay? So all these make up the total package of who you are, not just your personal email. Okay? If you need to include other affiliations emails, do so by including more into your profile itself under the settings that I showed earlier on. Okay.
That's a very good point, Julene. I think an advice to maybe early career researchers who have not published articles yet, we would strongly suggest you to use your institutional email address to create your account. And as time goes by, as years goes by, as you build up your profile, you can actually add in your personal email address for to serve the purpose of international outreach.
Yes, but do remember to switch your email accounts when you move. Otherwise, you can't. If you forgot your password, there's nowhere for you to recall. Okay. So if there's no more questions for now, let me just go through my final part and about why you should do peer review. The important thing is that you need to remember that when you do peer review, you are staying abreast of the latest research trends in your field. You're improving also in your own writing skills, and you're also learning how to present your own research better to journal editors. So a lot of times peer review work to some folks are extra work, okay? But as developing early career researchers, it is very good if you're exposed to peer review. But of course, sometimes it's rather awkward in terms of if you're an early career researcher. Okay? So if you feel motivated and say, oh, I want to do peer review, but if you've never peer reviewed before, where do you start? So some of your colleagues will say, oh, I have so many peer reviews to do, too many to do. But then from your end, you want to do review work, but how do you start and how do you get this recognition to be invited to review? Okay? So most of the time, what I would recommend is to work with your supervisors. Okay? Many of your supervisors will actually be invited for review. And your supervisors can also suggest that, hey, do you want to do to review for this paper together with me? So you become a co-reviewer. So on Publons, we are able to recognize co-reviewers as well. So even though your supervisor is the recognized reviewer, he has the option of including your name as a co-reviewer. Okay? And that's about where to start and how to get your reviews. Okay? But how do you actually do a good review? Okay? There is an option on Publons. So there's a Publons Academy under the community page where you can go through 10 modules to go through how you do a proper peer review. Okay? Write a review and get a mentor from within UITM. Okay? And once you have gone through this and graduated, you get a certified Publons Academy peer reviewer certificate. And you also get this badge as a certified reviewer on Publons profile. So with this certified reviewer badge, you will get more recognition from all these international journals that we partner with, and therefore start on your peer review journey. Okay. And within UITM, if you have senior researchers who have already done a lot of reviews, I would encourage you to become a mentor for your juniors as well as your students. This will also help you to increase your international network. So being a mentor opens up more avenues of international researchers in Publons coming to you to be their mentor. Okay? So it will broaden your international visibility. Okay, so that's all the sharing that I have for now. Okay, so let me know if there's any more questions from the audience. Let me just have a quick look. Okay. Okay. See the Q&A. Okay. Doesn't seem like there's any new questions. Okay, Clarice, any new questions from your end?
Nope, I'm good over here.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, I hope what I've shared with all of you is useful for today. And I look forward to more successes from UITM and more Publons profile from UITM. Okay? Of course, I am reachable by email. And so look forward to meeting all of you again soon. Okay, back to you, Dennis.
Yep. Okay, thanks a lot, Julien and Clarice, for the engaging and informative Q&A sessions. And also thanks to Dr. Yong for giving the opening address earlier on. We have come to the end of the session today. Thank you very much for all the participants here for joining this webinar, and we really hope you found it insightful. So if you have any questions or issue with creating a profile in Web of Science or Publons, you can contact us via phone or email. Feel free to take a photo of this slide. We will share this slide with you later on. So before you leave, please don't forget to complete the survey after this webinar. So that's all. Have a good day. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.